Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest, my fiance, Vikra.
What's up, everyone?
So today we're going to be doing a highly requested video, which is telling you guys the story of how we convinced our parents to let us move out together before marriage.
Dun dun dun.
Before we start this video, I just kind of want to say this is in no way us telling you guys that you should rebel and go against your parents and blah blah blah. Stop. It's really like just us telling our story of what we needed to do and our situation and why it was important for us to move out before we got married. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and I probably will be reminding you guys that throughout the entire video, because yeah, I'm not like trying to be that person.
You don't want no aunties and
yeah, I don't want no one coming in like blaming me, being like, oh well, Ready to Glow told me to just fucking do it. We're gonna start off by telling you guys, I guess, a little bit of our cultural background. So I'm Indian, specifically Gujarati, and yeah, my parents came from Gujarat and they moved here back in like 1983 or something like that. So it's been a while, and yeah, I'm first generation Canadian. Well, Brainford. And yeah, go ahead.
So I was born in Canada. My parents are from Sri Lanka. So I guess I am also first generation, what is it, Canadian, Sri Lankan, whatever you call it.
We both have parents that immigrated here from India or Sri Lanka, and with that they brought their like Indian or Sri Lankan brown mentalities with them.
I have a much better understanding of like my parents are just, they're going to make certain decisions and have certain perspectives about things because it's just how they grew up. Like you spend like your first 30 years growing up in another country, then you move here, and like we think they're automatically gonna live like everyone else here, which is kind of like, it's not really realistic. And so I've always kind of known that and just kind of accepted it. And like there's certain things in life that I'll just accept, but like there's certain big decisions in my life where it's like, no, you'll have to make the decision.
I think it's also a little bit different too, because like he's a boy and I'm a girl, so 100%. Like there's like also that massive difference where like, yeah, you can come to accept that because your parents aren't as controlling about like little things, right? Like for me, like I feel like my parents, and I feel like for most girls of like immigrant parents, their parents are very controlling over small little things, like, and half the shit that guys are allowed to do, like we're not allowed to do. So for us, it's like, oh my God, if we do anything outside of what they say, it's like we're rebelling, we're not like good girls. So I think it was a bit of a harder journey for me than it was for Vikra. But we both had like our ups and downs. But yeah, just so you guys know, yeah, my parents are a little bit more traditional, and they are very like, they're the typical like what will people say type of parents. So that's always kind of dictated a lot of their decision-making skills. I
think the most frustrating thing is just like, it's this whole concept of like they care so much about what other people think.
Yeah.
And I think,
how are your parents though? I feel like your parents are like traditional, but like they're still a lot more understanding than my parents are.
Yo, my parents care a lot about, obviously they care about what other people think. I think over the years they have lessened their stance on that and just become a lot more comfortable. And I think that's because like as I've gotten older and I've showed them like, I'm not doing anything stupid out here. Like that's the same thing that I think you would always say. It's like, it's not like you're going around doing dumb stuff. So it's like, why are you getting so worried or thinking like you're gonna make the wrong decisions where you've had a history of decision making in your life where you haven't really done anything dumb?
Yeah.
So it's like, why are you, just trust your kids, right?
I think your parents, like, as they grew up, kind of like understood that and like let things go a little bit, and my parents weren't really like that. So yeah, anyways, enough about that. Like that's just a little bit of background about like what our parents are kind of like. His are not as, I guess, traditional as mine. They have their ways. My parents have my ways. They're traditional in their own ways.
Yeah, traditional about certain things, but like they've come around.
And I feel like his parents are a little bit more lenient with him than my parents.
Again, if I had a girl straight up,
yeah,
like
the boy situation,
be your situation.
And before we get into actually like talking about again what our parents' reaction was, we're just going to tell you a little bit about how we came about buying this house. So I'll let you do that.
So back in 2016, beginning of 2016, late 2015, I had purchased this home purely as an investment. I did not have any thoughts of wanting to move in here. So I had got it, and then I rented it out for a year, and then me and Hamali, we started getting a lot more serious because she couldn't resist, obviously.
We were serious from before that. Okay.
Serious in terms of like our living situation. Like,
yeah.
She needed space.
I really needed to move out because I felt like I had no space to work anymore. So,
and you lived really far. She lives in Brampton, because folks who don't know, Brampton is about like a good 45 minutes to an hour from where I live. So chilling every day was like, so cumbersome.
It was just really annoying. Like I had to drive, like usually I drove in and around like 45 to 50 minutes at minimum to go see him. And like on a weekday, that's really tiring, especially like when you have work the next day. It was like always messing up my schedule.
Quick tips, if you're gonna date someone, try to find them
a little bit closer to home.
Walking distance or driving.
So it was just like it was just really annoying. And you know, we started wedding planning and like it was just, there was a lot going on. I needed to see him often, and yeah, it was just frustrating. It was frustrating being that far apart.
Like I said, I had bought the home in 2016. It was a new build, so we didn't get it till 2018, 2 years later. So
last year,
yeah. And I had found renters, and I had them leased for a year. And so we always knew in 2010 and 20 we were probably going to get married. That was like the year that we had pegged. And so going into this year, Hamali really needed the space. It was really hard for us to see each other. So we're just like,
let's just move into this house.
This is a good opportunity, because we were thinking about finding another apartment, moving in, maybe living downtown, but it was just like, there's
and I'll
so much
explain
going
that
on.
in with like my part of the story just a little bit like in more detail. Like so we'll come back to that, just because like there was a lot of decisions I had to make about my living situation because of everything that I was going through.
And just like, I don't know, just like words of advice, like when we started dating, when we knew we were going to be serious, we started planning like early on,
like,
in terms of like what were the big things we needed to get accomplished, so that when we're married, we're not dealing with too many things. So like house was one of them, like just career wise, getting our shit together. And we'll make another
video for you guys, just like telling you guys how we kind of planned out our life a little bit. But yeah, that's just a little bit of background of like how we got this house. So we'll go into what happened with Vikra and his parents, and then into how my story kind of went.
When I had introduced my parents, I told them 2020 is probably when we're gonna get married, and I was like, you know, my lease is ending in July, and I was just like really frank with them. I was just like, look, we have a home. She needs the space. I'm ready to move out as well. I'm 29 years old, I'm almost 30, like I have no problem moving out financially, and just like point in my life where I think I can move out and things will be fine, and it is the right time to move out, essentially. So my parents were like, when they saw me, they were just kind of like...
Hold on, wait, I just want to say, like, it is so common for brown people, like if you're not brown, you might not know this, but like, it is so common for brown people to live with their parents until they're married. Like,
so
like you don't really move out until you're married. We don't go even live on our own or like rent an apartment with our friends or anything like that. It's like usually you just stay with your parents until you're married, and then you move out. So yeah.
Which I wasn't opposed to. Shit, I had a blast. Like,
and I mean, like, your parents pay for everything.
Because of that, I was in the position where I could save enough money, I can buy a home, and I was in the right spot to find myself that I could move out with no real issues. So I was like, I'm gonna get married the year after. Like, so it's like, either I move now or I move in next year. It's like, it's under a year or a few months difference, really, right? So what's the big deal? And so when I explained it to them, they weren't like thrilled, obviously. Like they understood, like they didn't really have anything back to say, because they knew like it made a lot of sense, and they just realized, okay, look, he's in a position, we've done our job, it is what it is, type of thing. So when I told them, they were just kind of like on the fence, and then I just kept open communication, and I just asked them, like, yo, what are you guys concerned about if I move out? Like, what are the issues? Let me know, let me address them for you, so you're not like, still upset about certain things. So I just try to keep as much open communication as possible.
I was also a little bit concerned too, because with his parents, at least, like with my parents, I'm like, whatever, because they're my parents. You know what I mean? But I didn't want his parents to think ways of me, and vice versa too. I don't think Viktor wanted my parents to think ways of him, like he's making me move out or I'm making him move out or whatever it was. So like yeah, Viktor did say like I did need this for my business and like I needed the space and whatever, but like a lot of it was him taking on the sole responsibility of being like, this is what I want, which I think is important to do. Like if you are planning on moving out with your partner or whatever, like don't put that blame on your partner, because you don't want like your in-laws to be like, well, what the fuck, who does she think she is, or who does he think he is? You don't want to be marrying into this family and then them already have this impression of you that like, well,
you took our kid away.
Yeah, you took our kid away, or like she's like controlling and like he just does whatever she says, or vice versa, and like that's just not some burden that you want. So you need to make sure that when you are telling your parents, just like as Viktor did, that he was like, you know, I'm ready for this, like I want to do this myself.
But I would say just general advice, because might not apply specific to your situation. Just keep open communication with your parents. Tell them exactly why you're moving out, why you need to do this. Get them to understand and try to get them to be in your shoes. I know that's difficult. And also try to put yourselves in their shoes, right? They're your parents, they love you.
So getting back to like, I guess your parents' reaction, at what point did you feel like they kind of got over it and accepted it and like understood that you were moving on?
I don't think there was a specific point I could look to and be like, yeah, that's when they were like, hey, it's okay, that type of thing. I think like these kind of things became easier for me, like my discussions with my parents on like big decisions of my life, once I started opening up the communication with them and just telling them exactly kind of the things that's going on in my life and why I need to make these decisions. Once I started doing that a lot more is when they started understanding. So in those, like, I had a lot of conversations with them for like the next couple of weeks after I had told them on like why I wanted to move out and like addressed a lot of their concerns. And then that's when they started to come around, like having these conversations individually with both of them. Like my dad understood pretty like right away. He just like was just bummed out.
How scared or nervous were you to tell them? Were you nervous? Were you scared?
No, I wasn't scared or nervous. I was just really bummed out, man. I was just like, cause like when my brother left, I started getting closer with my parents. I had a much better relationship with them. I'm older now too, and I like now I really understand all the things my parents told me growing up. So I was more bummed than anything when I was moving out. I was like, you know, it's
not bummed like when you were moving out. Like obviously.
Sorry, no, bummed with the fact that like I knew I was gonna move out, and like I was telling my parents like I'm not gonna be here with you guys.
And you knew it was like gonna break their heart, so you felt like
exactly.
Sad.
It's just like I felt really sad that I had that, like, because I knew they were gonna be really sad.
My experience was so different. So I'm gonna, kind of rewind it back, and I'll tell you guys like what happened with me telling my parents. I'm gonna start with like my last like 3-4 years of life. I was going through a lot, and there was moments where I was like, I just wasn't always getting along with my parents, because we just had different views on life and what I wanted and all these things. And again, I think like everything my parents said to me really came from a good place. It was through caring and through love. I don't think they were ever saying anything to really harm me. I think it was more of a protection thing, but we still weren't on the same page because I just didn't think they really understood me. So there was like points probably in like 2017 a lot, where I was just like, I really need to move out of here because I just feel like I'm not getting along with my parents. I really need this space and just got to be away from that energy. And then towards more end of 2017, like I would say October, November, that kind of stopped. That need to be away from my parents kind of stopped because they kind of laid off a little bit more. Like I had this really big talk with them. It was like kind of an argument. There was a lot of crying and yelling, whatever. But like I think my parents finally understood what I was going through a little bit more, and they kind of laid off me. Again, I think open communication is key there, where it was like, I think they just like had no idea what was going on in my life. And then when I broke down, they finally understood it. So they kind of like backed off, and they weren't being so, I guess, like watching over my shoulder all the time. So that need to move away from my parents for that reason stopped. And then end of 2017 and then going into like 2018, I arose like with a new problem, which was my business was really picking up and I just needed space. My room, if you watch my decluttering like makeup vlog or whatever, I give you a mini like room tour.
Was so small. Like, that was the main thing for me. Where I was like, hey, we need to get a bigger space.
Yeah, it was really bad, and I'll link my like decluttering makeup like video in the description below. So if you guys want to see like a mini room tour of what my room at my parents' house looked like, you guys can see it there.
Your own reasons were as well as like you want to move out because like this is the right time in your life, not just for your business but just for you as a person, right?
Yeah, that's true too. Like I was ready personally to move out as well. I think the business was a big factor of it, and then again, like I was ready to move out like on my own and start my own life. I still did need, I think, a break from my parents because like I feel like even though we had gotten over all of that stuff, there's just this like lingering energy. Like you can kind of feel it. Like I could kind of feel that my parents weren't always the happiest with my decisions and whatever. Like they weren't happy about it, but they came to accept it. So I think they're two different things. And it was nice that they came to accept it, and I think that's all I can really ask for, but I could tell that they weren't really happy. So like when I came home, I felt I was still a bit of a disappointment every time because I just felt like they weren't really happy with what I was doing. And so like I just kind of needed to be away from that energy. I needed a space for my business. And then on top of that, we had leased out this, we were renting this place out to tenants from last year, July, and their like lease was pretty much coming up in July, and they had 2 little kids, and we don't want to kick them out a couple months before our wedding. So like
I let them know.
Yeah, like it would have been middle of the school year. It just would have been such a hassle, and so it's just easier if we kick them out when their lease ends. It gives them more time to figure out their living situation, and like he said, like we're getting married next year, so it's not like too far off from when we're actually getting married. And so like it all just kind of made sense to move into this house. Last year, October, I'm just gonna rewind again. Sorry, my story keeps going, I guess, back and forth. But last year, October, I had made this decision that I wanted to move out. This is like before we had decided that this was the house that we were gonna move into. Prior to that, in October, I was talking to my parents and I was like, look, I like really need to move out. Like it's just the time in my life where I need to do this. I need to do it for myself. I need to do it for my business. I just need to do it. I basically told them, I had taken them to McDonald's. I bought them like a sundae. So yeah, we were just like eating, and I was like, look, I really need to move out. I'm looking into getting an apartment. I just like want to let you guys know. My parents were not really thrilled. They were just like, well, why do you want to move out? Like, why can't you just wait till like after the wedding? I was like, I don't think you should be living by yourself. It's not like safe, blah, blah, blah. What if you go from the garage upstairs? Something could happen to you. And I was like, what? And then I was like, okay, well, what if like Vicar lived with me, right? And he was like, oh, I don't know if I like that, but it's better than you, I guess, living by yourself. So he said that kind of stuff on his own, and I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, he's saying it's better than me living on my own. So that's kind of where the ball started rolling about me moving out and the talk about me moving out. And then my dad started kind of like helping me apartment hunt, and he was like really gung-ho about it. Like he was like fine, like he seemed like okay with it. I think in and around December is probably when we decided that this is the house that we wanted to move into. It would have been too expensive for me to buy my own apartment. I wasn't really looking to rent either. Like I wanted to buy something. So, and we're paying for our own wedding as well. So a lot of the expenses would have just like really added up, and we already had this house. I told my dad, and my dad was like, okay. And like he didn't really talk about it too much, and then I was like, okay, whatever. Like he already knew I was moving out into an apartment, so.
And that's what some parents do, is like they especially if it's something that's down the road, like it's a decisions you made that you're gonna do down the road, they might not want to address it at that time. They just go, okay, sure, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
That's when you need to like confront it and be like, nah, this is happening. Yeah. This is why I'm doing it. You're
in denial.
You're being informed now. Yeah. This is not a heads up. This is me informing you what's going on.
And I think that, like, to them, they were just like, okay, well, she said that she's gonna do that, and like they're just like she's probably not gonna do it, because I've talked about moving out before and I just like never really did it. Yeah, this time it was actually happening, and I think in my parents' brains it was just like, okay, well, yeah, she said it, but like we'll see what happens kind of thing, right? And then I guess like we got engaged, and then we were like, look, so we're gonna start renos on our house. And then come June, like we started talking a lot more seriously about our house renos. My dad's in the flooring industry, so like I started asking my dad about flooring, and my dad was like helping me with it, and so it was like, okay, cool, he knows. And again, like Vicar said, I wanted to keep it open communication. I wanted to tell them what was going on. I wanted my dad's help with the flooring. I wanted their advice on stuff, whatever, right? Because this is the first time we were moving out, right? And like this is the first time we own a home. We're in like, I think beginning of July or mid-July or something like that. My dad was like, so are you moving out permanently? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I told you this last year, right? And I was like, I told you this last year. And he was like, no. He's like, I never knew you were gonna move out. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I fully had him, like, we went to McDonald's, I bought you a sundae. There was a full conversation, right? Like, we talked about apartments and blah, blah, blah. And then they just, like, didn't really say anything after I said that. And I was like, okay. And I got really pissed because I was like, what the fuck? I swear I told you. And why are you coming back to me acting as if I've never told you this information before? That just kind of led to me being really upset.
That was really strange. I didn't understand.
Yeah, I didn't really understand it either. And I think it's really back to what you said. They think that we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's not really like it's not really like a, I told you. It's more of like a, oh, like maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, instead of a, like this is actually happening. I think they get into denial almost.
Sometimes they don't want to talk about something.
Things that are uncomfortable?
Yeah, things that are uncomfortable and things that are not gonna happen right now. So it's like, I don't have to deal with it right now.
Yeah, and then they like push it into the future.
Yeah.
And then that happened, and I kind of just left it, and I was like, you know what? I'm not dealing with this right now. Like, I had already told you, and I was like over it. So I left the house after they basically said that. And then time kind of went by, and then a couple weeks after, so like I would say like maybe in August, my dad said the same thing. I was getting ready in my washroom. Oh, and in between, my mom, she would have like separate private talks with me and just be like, why don't you just move out until after the wedding? Like, why can't you just wait? I was like, no, I told you I need a space for my business. I can't be living like this anymore. It's super frustrating. And so then, yeah, and then a couple, like maybe like mid-August or whatever, beginning of August, my dad came back to me as I was getting ready, and he was like, you know, I don't think you should move out. It doesn't look good. And I was like, what do you mean it doesn't look good? And then he was like, you know, it doesn't look good in our like community. We don't really do things like this. I was just kind of like, well, I don't really give a fuck if it doesn't look good or not. I'm like, this is something that I need to do. And I'm like, this isn't really about me leaving because I don't want to be with you guys or anything like that. I'm like, I just really need the space for my business. And I straight up told this to my parents. I was like, I think it's really unfair for you to say that it doesn't look good because you're not even taking into consideration what I'm going through and what I need in my life. Like, you're so concerned with what everyone else thinks that you don't even concern yourself with what's good for your daughter, what's healthy for your daughter, what makes her happy. It's just what makes everyone else happy. And I was like, what a crazy way to live, right? I also said, I don't understand if this looks so bad in your community and you feel like they're gonna stop talking to you for whatever reason, are those the people you really want to surround yourself with? If this is your community and this is like your people and you want to keep that sense of community, why would they talk shit about you if that's how close you are? I'm like, you barely see these people. Like, you maybe see them 2 to 3 times a year, and they're gonna find things to talk about regardless. They're gonna talk shit about me whether or not like I move out. So I'm like, why are you so concerned? They're gonna talk about you for like 10 minutes and then move the fuck along, you know? So I'm like, stop being so concerned with that. And I was like, and also stop surrounding yourself with people like that, because if someone actually really cared about you and wanted to help you and blah, 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 they're not just there for you during your bad time. They're not just there for you when everything is going spick and span. They would never talk shit about you regardless. It's just not something they would do because this is someone you care about and someone that's part of your community and that, you know, you want to bring up, right? So like, I was just like, it doesn't make any sense why you're so concerned with what they have to say, because they're not even people that you should be surrounding yourself with. And yeah, I kind of said that to my parents. They didn't really say anything to, well, my dad didn't say anything to that. And then my mom was like, you know, it's not really about what other people say. It's more so like, we just want to spend time with you before you leave. Like, this is our last little moments with you before you head out, right? And I was like, okay, but Dad just literally just said it doesn't look good. So it is about that. And second of all, I barely talk to you guys. I'm usually stuck in my room away from everyone and kind of by myself all the time. I don't really understand what you mean by you want to spend this last little moments with me. And I told them this too. I was like, I find it really irritating that you say that I don't talk to you, but when I do, you don't listen. So I'll tell you everything, I'll give you open communication, whatever. And if it's not something that you want to hear, you completely ignore it and act as if I never said anything. So I don't really understand that. Like, do I talk to you and then you be mad at me and get in arguments with me, or like completely ignore what I'm saying? Or do I talk to you, or do I not talk to you and then you're mad at me for not talking to you and like involving you in my life? And throughout this entire conversation, I was like crying and yelling, and I got really upset with my parents, and it was just kind of rough. And I remember leaving my house and calling my sister and just being in tears. And my sister was just kind of like, you know what, they're gonna come around, just do your thing. You've already told them, like, there's only so much you can do, and they'll eventually come around. So I just kind of stuck with that. Yeah, I left my house. I felt really bad because I felt like I was leaving on not the best terms, and it's not really what I wanted to happen, and which is why I was like telling them well in advance that I was moving out and like keeping open communication with them. But it was still really rough. I don't know, I'm pretty sure I called you crying too, just being like, you know, I don't really know what to do. I feel really bad. I just feel like I'm never enough, and I just feel like my parents don't listen to me, and I feel like I'm just like always a disappointment. That's how I always feel. All this stuff happened. My parents and we talked to each other here and there. My parents didn't stop talking to me or anything. I think after I said all those things, they just like knew I wasn't gonna change my mind and like this was happening, so they just come to accept it. I think my parents kind of held in how sad they were and like how, I guess, disappointed they were in me, because I remember my little sister telling me that my dad had come into her room and was like, Emily is gonna be the death of me.
You said that?
Yeah, and like, I don't think he was just like really unhappy. And when I heard that, I was just kind of like, I don't really know what to do, because like, this is my life. Like, I can't be living it for my parents.
I guarantee you, we've been moved out from home. I guarantee you, your parents somewhere deep down have a serious sense of pride knowing that one of their kids moved out and they're living on their own, they're self-sufficient, independent, because they're thinking, they have to be thinking like, yo, I had a big reason to do with why they're able.
I think they're proud of that. I don't think they're not proud of that. I think it's more so I did it before marriage, and I'm just like going against all the rules of what it is to be a good Indian girl. So I think that's where the disappointment came from. I don't think it has anything to do with, oh, she's not ready to move out because she's not mature or like not financially stable or whatever.
No, they associate, you know what's funny? They associate
you know what's really
weird?
With, yeah, like,
you know what's really weird? Okay, so say you're getting married on, you know, March 23rd, okay? For whatever reason, March 22nd, you're not, you're a child, you're not ready to move out. You are a child.
March 23rd,
they wouldn't allow you to go.
You have signed
but
those papers.
the second, all of a sudden, your character
you're
changed. You're an adult, and
you're
magically able to take care of yourself.
You know what my parents had said to me one time? I was like, so the day before, I still need to ask you to do stuff, but then the day after, I'm like married. What you don't want anything to do with like my decisions, or like you have no say in my decisions anymore. And they were like, well, yeah, now you belong to the husband. And I was like, I don't belong to anybody. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So like, that's kind of their mentality. It's just like, as soon as you're married, you're an adult now. If you're not married, you're not an adult. Yeah, I guess all of this happened. My parents were just like not thrilled, but they came to accept that I was leaving. And I just felt really guilty leaving, because I felt like I wasn't leaving on the best terms. And so when I did move out, like the day I moved out, I made sure I wrote my parents a note and I stuck it into their nightstand, because I have a really hard time talking to my parents. Like, I feel like I can't get my feelings out. I feel like that's a lot of like people. I just like, I feel like cringy just talking to them about my feelings. So I wrote out all my feelings into a note. I basically explained like me moving out has nothing to do with you or who you are as parents. Like I think you guys are great people. I absolutely love you. I think you guys did a great job raising me, which is one of the reasons I think I'm ready to move out. You raise someone that's strong, independent, and that makes decisions out of the goodness of your heart. My parents have always taught me whenever you do something, you always do it with the right intentions and like with out of the goodness of your heart, and you don't do things to harm other people. And if it takes you longer to get to your end result, then so be it. As long as I know all of that, like I'll be okay. And I wrote all this in a letter, and I told them that I love them a lot and I'm sorry that we don't always see eye to eye, but I needed to do what was best for me, and that I'm gonna be okay, and that I'll like call and I'll visit like often and whatever. So that's kind of how I ended it. And I felt like writing that letter really helped give me a sense of closure and not feel so guilty about moving out and not feel like such a disappointment, because I felt like, okay, I explained myself to the fullest. So at this point, I feel like I have done everything that I possibly could do. And if they don't take it the right way or don't feel like happy about anything or whatever, it is what it is. That's not anything I can control anymore. So that's kind of how I ended it, and I felt really good about it, at least.
It was like your way of getting closure.
Yeah, it was like my way of getting closure. And they read it, and then the next day, my mom was like, you know, that was really sweet. And then my dad messaged me the next day, and he was like, you know, I really wish you had still moved out after marriage, but we still give you our blessings. And I was like, okay, so they've come to accept it, and they still give me their blessings, and that meant a lot to me. So I was really happy about that. To end off this video, I think we kind of just want to say these are the things you should know before making the decision to move out and going and telling your parents that this is the decision you want to make, because I think it's like one of those things that you have to be 100% sure about and like have to be willing to fight for it. And if you're not ready to do that, then don't even bother. One of the things is you should be financially stable. Make sure that you do what it takes.
Financially stable, yeah, like doesn't mean you just have like money in your bank account. Like they shouldn't be paying for anything in your life at this point.
Exactly.
Your phone bill, your car bills, you want to go on vacation, you want a new laptop, toy, whatever it is, you have to be completely self-sufficient. That is rule number one.
Yeah. Like if you're moving out with your partner, you both should be ready for that conversation and be able to back each other up. Like you don't want, again, to play the blame game of like, she told me to do this or he told me to do this or whatever. I think you should be mature enough to know that this is your own responsibility. And so when you talk to your parents, this is all on you, and you're not blaming your partner for anything, as like using them as a scapegoat kind of thing. And like, yeah, you need to be there for each other emotionally too. I think especially for the guy, to be there emotionally for the girl, because it's way harder on us to do that to our parents. It's just harder for us. Like we're treated so much more differently than you. So having Vikra as my backup, like to call and just be like, look, like this is what's going on. Like I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. He was so emotionally supportive throughout all of it and helped keep me going and just grounded me whenever I needed to be grounded and let me know that things were gonna be okay.
I'm a big believer in moving in with whoever your significant partner is before you get married.
Yeah,
because there's a whole lot of shit you're gonna learn when you move in with them. And so like ultimately, like you want to be 100% sure that this is the person you want to be with, and in order to get to that 100%, I feel like you gotta live with them.
Yeah, because like you only know maybe like 50% of that person's life. You only see them a couple times a week, and it's like, yeah, you talk all the time and whatever, but you don't know the nitty-gritty details. You don't know like what their living habits are like. And it does result in like a big shift in your relationship too, because there's a lot of compromising and really getting to understand each other. It's a lot of
growing up. Yeah. It's a lot of growing up, man. You'll pick up on things very, very quickly, but ultimately that will help you understand if this person is right for you.
So I think you need to be like very mentally ready for it. I think be ready to like also face a lot of emotional burden too, because it wasn't a walk in the park when I told my parents. Like it wasn't easy. I think a lot of people thought it was. Everyone was just like, oh, like how did you convince them? Your parents are cool, like they let you move out. And I was like, not really. Like there was a lot that went behind the scenes that was just a lot of fighting, a lot of arguments, a lot of crying, and so just you have to be mentally prepared to know that you are going to be going through that. Anyways, so that was, I guess, our story. Yeah, that was the...
We shared some of our experiences. Definitely might not like match everything that you might be dealing with, but like ultimately just the general takeaways that we gave you guys, hopefully you do find it is helpful for you guys in your life.
And open communication, be strong, and good luck. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the love and support. And if you guys have any other videos that you want to see me and Victor do, let me know in the comments below, and we will film that for you guys. You'll probably be seeing a lot more of him on my channel, so let us know what you want to hear out of this mouth. Anyways, thanks you guys so much for watching. Bye.